What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some Arizona State summer fall camp wide receiver versus DB one-on-one. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a wide receiver or a quarterback and would like to train with us this offseason, we are going to be coming out to 15 more cities across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camps. Next up, we're coming out to San Francisco, then Miami, Las Vegas, Charlotte, Portland, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, Buffalo, New York, Atlanta, Houston, Philly, Detroit, Boise, and Los Angeles, California. So if you guys are local to any one of those cities and would like to train with us, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you out and love to work with you guys, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So now, first things first, we're going to be looking at this kind of like slant route, 5-yard under route versus a DB who's lined up inside shade in like this catch technique. So this wide receiver does like a textbook diamond release where he attacks the outside shoulder. The DB is able to slip underneath and win on this route. So if you got a DB sitting off, maybe he's like about 3 to 4 yards away, and you're running a 5-yard under, like a 5-yard dig, 5-yard in, our goal can't be, okay, I'm going to attack him inside, take the outside release, and try to stack him. I just simply don't have that kind of time or that kind of space because I'm running a 5-yard route. So what you have to do is you have to attack a DB's shoulder and a DB's hip. And when we do that, we have to sell vertical because our goal is to get him to open up his hips so I could slip underneath. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, if I got an inside leverage guy and I have to run an inside route, shouldn't I be taking an inside release because it's an inside breaking route? I need to take an inside release. That's completely wrong. We never want to force the release on a route. We want to take the release that is given by the DB, by his leverage, and by the distance he has away from me. So maybe if this DB was pressed up like right up in our face, we could give him a quick move and then try to stack over the top. But because he's off, we have to attack the shoulders. So he comes off, gets a little hesitation, move off the ball, and that's just a way to kind of pair his releases together. Because, maybe this receiver's done this in practice before, maybe in an actual game setting, he's done it on film, where he'll give this little hezzy move and then take off and go run this fade. So maybe the DB's seen it before, maybe we've used it on him before, even when you're backside not getting the ball thrown to you. So he gives this little hezzy move, and then he attacks the outside shoulder for 5 steps, trying to sell like he's running a fade. And when he's attacking the outside shoulder, you got to make sure your hips and your shoulders are committed to the fade. So many wide receivers, when they do this release or when they do this type of move, before they break down, their shoulder and their hip are already turning out of the break. You have to stay committed until the last possible second. Now, the other thing that's going to get this DB to open up is your stride length. So many times wide receivers try to be too quick over here. And again, you want to be quick, but you don't want to be choppy with your movement. So when you're attacking his outside shoulder, you don't want to be taking all these choppy steps because when you take the choppy steps, that DB's not believing it's a fade. You want to run in full stride, obviously full speed, and commit that upper half. That's what's going to get that DB to open up, and that's what will get us space. So that's a textbook release there, a textbook move, I guess you could say, with a 5-yard in route versus a DB who's playing that catch technique. So now, remember how I said off the ball, what dictates our releases as a wide receiver is the DB, right? It's about the DB's leverage and the DB's distance. So that's what you want to be looking for as a wide receiver coming up to the ball. So this receiver is going to be running like a 12 back to 10-yard curl route versus an inside shade press coverage look, and this DB is right up in his face, right up on the line of scrimmage, as close as you can get. So when we come up to the ball, that's what we're looking for. We see that he's inside shade. Okay, that tells me a couple things. He's trying to protect the inside. He's not going to let me take an inside release. If you're running a curl route, ideally you would love an inside release because that's easy. You could just break it off, ball's right there, there's no DB in your way. But if he's taking away the inside, I can't force it because we know he's not going to give it up, especially if he's disciplined. Now, when it comes to picking the move that I'm going to use, that's where the distance comes into play. So if he's maybe like 2 yards off and we have to run this curl, I'm still not going to take the inside release. I would close the distance, give a move, and then take the outside release. But since he's right up on the ball, he's already closed the distance for me. So I'm going to try to make him miss laterally. So let's play this thing full speed. So this receiver gives like kind of a lateral jab, outside release, puts the brakes on, and is able to win on that curl. That's as good as it gets, fellas. Because again, this DB already closed the space with us. He's not giving us any room to breathe, so I got to make him miss lateral. So you see how he gives this quick jab to the inside. Again, he's not stepping vertical. He's stepping lateral, but he's still stepping outside the DB's frame. He's still selling with his hips, selling with his shoulders. And why is that important, do you think? That's important because that's what gets that DB to hold to the inside. It keeps him honest. Because again, if you look like you're running an inside breaking route, or an inside release, I should say, versus inside inside shade press, that's the best way to get this DB to hesitate because he's taught, do not give up the inside against inside shade press. So we take the outside release, we're pushing vertical, put the brakes on, throw the DB by, and it's an easy win. Now, again, we don't want to force that release to the inside because why is all this important? Like, why take the outside release? Like, yeah, it worked here, but why not just take the inside release? Like, what's the big deal if I could get off the press? One, the DBs probably won't let us. Two, if we force the inside release and he gets hands, the whole reason the DB wants to get hands is to disrupt timing with our quarterback. And him jamming us disrupts timing. Quarterback's going to move on or he might get sacked, right? Now, another reason, let's say you got to run a curl and let's say the slot receiver is running like, I don't know, like let's say he's running a flat route and you get rerouted all the way to the inside and you're running into this flat route. That's not good. That's poor spacing on the route. So we have to take what the DB gives us for spacing and for timing. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Great lateral move by this receiver to get off the press. That's a great way for you guys to beat that physical DB who's right up on the line. So now, we talk a lot about having a plan off the line of scrimmage from a wide receiver perspective, but a lot of times the receiver position is about reacting, right? So you might come up to the line and you see exactly what you see here. Inside shade, press coverage DB, maybe about a half a yard away. So we come up to the line, we see that. Our game plan, this receiver is going to be running a 10 to 12 yard dig. Our game plan would be, okay, I'm going to attack him inside and take the outside release. Take what he gives me, right? Because remember, it's all about keeping timing. We don't want to get jammed and rerouted, and we don't want to get forced way inside running into other routes, which is for spacing. So spacing and timing. Now, watch what ends up happening here. DB disguises his leverage. He jumps to the outside. Receiver just puts the brakes on, takes it, and is able to run that dig route. That's how you react as a wide receiver. The receiver position is not just about having a plan. If the plan doesn't work, I'm moving on to the next rep. If the DB takes it away or plays this a certain way, we got to be able to react as a receiver. So again, he comes off the ball, gives a quick jab inside. He's taking an outside release, but the DB was outside shade. And you see what's happening. This is why we should not force our releases when he's inside shade and I have an inside breaking route, or when he's outside shade and I have an outside breaking route. This is what's going to happen. Hands, rerouting. But again, this DB, this receiver, he reacts. He puts the brakes on. Bam, slips back underneath. If this DB wants to overcommit, that's totally fine. I take the inside release and I run the route the exact same way. Now I have spacing. Now I have timing, all because we were able to react. Guys, the receiver position, you have to train the plan, quote unquote, which is your release, your move at the top of the route, just as much as you have to train that reaction. DB takes it away, bam, I react and I get off the ball. So same thing could happen. Like, let's say, for example, he doesn't like jump as early, right? Let's say it's a smart DB. And DBs are smart, guys. So a lot of DBs watch these videos to get the upper hand on the receiver, to kind of try to get like how a receiver's thinking, right? So like, let's say you have to run a post route, and every time you've ran a post route against press on film, let's talk about film, because a lot of you guys will all eventually play at that level where you have DBs who are studying tape. And let's say every time you got to run a post or an inside breaking route and you have inside shade press, you take a jab inside, take the outside release, right? So maybe this DB sees that and you jab to the inside and he overcommits and he guesses what you're doing and you start to run and you see him overcommit. Nothing should stop you from putting the brakes on and just taking the inside release now. You got to take what the DB gives you. Sometimes that's a premeditated plan, and sometimes that's a reaction. So let's play this again, full speed one more time. Again, great job by this receiver reacting, not quitting on the play, and then finishing on the dig. Okay, so now this receiver here is going to be running that same 12 back to 10 yard curl, but now he is going to be going against an off-man coverage DB. So this is something that we haven't talked about yet, off-man coverage. So off-man coverage, I would classify it as like probably, obviously man, so this DB is going to have his eyes locked in on us. He's going to be kind of in this squared up stance, if you will. Usually he's inside shade. You don't see a whole lot of off-man outside shade unless it's a slot receiver in like one-on-ones, for example, or maybe it's cover one in a real game. But I would consider this where he's about 8 yards off, keyed in on us, right? So now that changes a couple of things. Because remember, when we're going up against man coverage, obviously we're trying to get separation. Now, if he's pressed up inside shade, I would do exactly like we showed in that second example. I give a move inside, I take the outside release. At the break point, I would slip under and try to throw by. But now he's off. Do I need to worry about a release? No, your separation comes solely at the top of the break. So if he's sitting at 8 and our break's at 12, we do not have time to attack him and then go restack at 12 or push outside release at 12. We just got to go. Very, very similar to the first example we talked about, that 5-yard in versus the catch technique DB at 3 to 4. So let's play this full speed what this receiver does. So he attacks the outside shoulder, gets the DB to open up the gate, and is able to win easily on that curl route. So let's talk about why. Because remember, everybody's hesitant on this play, guys. But this is how you would run a curl versus inside shade. This is how you'd run a dig. This is how you'd run a post versus inside shade. Any inside breaking route versus inside shade off man, that's about 8 to 10 yards of a break. This is how you would run it. Now, a lot of guys are hesitant, like I said, because they're worried that this DB's not going to move. Well, coach, what if he just sits there? I do this and he just sits there and I run into him. I get those questions all the time. And it happens, right? But I think it happens because you're not selling the route enough, right? Anytime somebody will say that and then they'll send me a clip of them running the route, what they'll do is right before the break point, they'll start to stand up. They'll raise their chest. They'll raise their head. They'll raise their chin. Indicator. DB sees it, he's not going to bite on the fade because nobody runs a fade like that, guys. And then another thing guys will do is right before the break point, because they're not confident in their hip drop, they're not confident in their change of direction because they haven't repped it enough. You're not going to magically wake up one day and have that like violent cut at the top of the break. What guys will do is they'll start to chop their stride. They'll start to slow way down, then they drop into the break. Again, indicator. DB does not believe it's a fade. And then some guys just don't run hard enough. You got to attack that outside shoulder with speed, with good stride, and good body language. And if you can do that, that is what's going to get that DB to open up. Because at the end of the day, what coverage is it? It's off man, but it's still man. So he's still threatened by that fade. And if we could sell that fade and get him to flip, we got all the space in the world. Now, a more creative way you can do this, I've seen this been done. Guys will come off the ball and they'll give a little tempo, like hesitation skip right here to slow the DB down. Then they accelerate to the fade. That makes the DB overreact, and then they get space. I've also seen guys come off the ball and attack the DB inside a little bit, maybe for like a couple yards, then go at his outside shoulder. That sometimes will get him to open up because both of those moves, that hesitation skip and that stem inside, looks a lot like a fade as well, and how you would run a fade versus inside shade off man coverage. So there's creative ways to do it, but conceptually, it all is the same. You end up attacking the outside shoulder and the outside hip. So let's play this thing again, full speed. Great job by that receiver getting that DB to open up and then winning on that route. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like to train with us in 15 states this year, we are coming out to San Francisco all the way, finishing it off in Los Angeles. We'll be coming out to Houston, Atlanta, Dallas, all those places that you guys have requested. We appreciate all the suggestions too. So if you guys would like to attend, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to meet you guys. I'll see you guys next time.